I've been thinking a lot about gaslighting, and the term gaslighting I know like is kind of popular, or at least right now on my TikTok it is. Um, just could be because the algorithm knows me well. Um, but I was thinking about, victims and abuse and all that stuff, and like how gaslighting is probably the biggest struggle that I have um, dealt with throughout my um, throughout my life, really. And so the term gaslighting actually comes from like a 1940 British play called Gaslight. The premise of the play is pretty much the definition of the term. It is this guy, back in the day when you used to control your lamps with the amount of gas going to it. He was turning it down just ever so slightly, and it was kind of driving his wife nuts. And she was like, "It's getting darker in here," and he was like, "No, it's not." And she was like, "Yes, it is," and he's like, "No, it's not." And he would pretend like it was totally normal, and literally drove her insane. Um, so that's gaslighting. That's where the term comes from. It was made into like an American movie sometime in the 40s, 44 maybe. Um, but anyway, so that's where the term comes from, and it is a brainwashing tactic. It's used to control people. It's used to um, change the way that you're thinking about something. And not only is it used like from an abuser's point of view, like to abuse someone else and get them to think some more, but it's actually something that like victims use on themselves. So I've been, like, why didn't you tell anyone about this stuff? I mean, aside from like my embarrassment and my own self-inflicted, like, um, I took that weight on myself, right? I blamed myself like for everything that's happened, and so aside from that, though, there's this total gaslighting of myself. Like it's not really that bad, nothing. Maybe I'm being extreme in labeling it this. Maybe it didn't really happen that way. Like, and then or maybe it's not so bad. He's not really such a bad guy. And then but that's all BS to make myself feel better, I guess. I don't know really why I do it. It's very strange and very frustrating. So I have been trying to, like, whenever those kinds of thoughts come up now, I will sit in it for a minute and try to figure out, like, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I trying to justify or explain away something or take away the value of something that I know happened? Like, what is it that's making me want to do that? Why am I doing this to myself? And I kind of just like try to sit in that moment. I don't have any answers. So there's no like big reveal here. It's just like I just am trying to be calm and sit in and kind of just sit in it for a little bit and figure things out. One of the things that I've been trying to mostly work on is, why am I gaslighting myself? And recognizing when it's happening, because I think when I recognize that it's happening, I can stop it and not go further down that um, rabbit hole. I think one of the um, hardest things that I ever came to terms with was like the actual labeling of those things, like referring to a relationship as being abusive, um, is hard, and part of it is due to um, gaslighting. So I, for the teenage relationship, I really hadn't processed everything. It took me a long time, like a lot. I'm still actually processing it. So it's not, that was not something that I like recognized while I was in it. It's not something that I recognized real, you know, clear as day. That incident at Publix in the parking lot was not, I still didn't look at that and go, whoa, I was in an abusive relationship. I um saw that more as like, my parents are going to know that something's really wrong. Something is wrong here. This is not okay. But like, I had not labeled it abusive. And then, so the timeline in that is like August, right before my junior year started, is when the incident at the movie theater and the shopping plaza happened. Early September is when the car accident happens. And then December is court. So about like November, probably. I It must have been November, October or November. I still hadn't talked to anyone. Okay, so like the car incident happens, and I shut down. Like the breakup was different for me. That I, friends knew, like, I'm not dating that guy anymore. Whatever. And I actually even went on a few dates like in the fall that year, um, but I hadn't told anyone about the accident. that was like it was just too much for me. So I really shut down. It was very private, and not private for, I don't really know. I think private because I didn't know how to talk about it. I hadn't even processed what had happened or come to terms with the fact that like this really doesn't happen to everybody. So this is not a normal thing. It's not normal behavior. None of what went down was good, and I really should have been in therapy, but I wasn't. And but that's a different thing. That, like, my mom actually did ask. She was like, I think I need to put you in therapy. And at the time, late 90s, like, mental health was not something that people talked about. So, and that guy was in therapy, and I was like, he's nuts. It's clearly not working for him, and I'm not crazy. I'm not going. And that's kind of like, that's how that went. But that is a regret of mine. I do wish I had gone. So anyway, so there I am, 16, trying to process all this crap by myself, really by myself, and didn't talk about it with people. And then so let's say November, sitting in health class, because as a junior you take health, and it's awkward. I hated it. Never fun. It's like sex education was like the worst thing to do in high school and middle school. But anyway, so there we are, health class, and for whatever reason, I was front center seat. And I remember this one day, we walk into class and everybody's like excited because, the roller cart with the TV's there. And, my fellow 40-year-olds, we remember the roller cart with the TV. When that thing came into the room, it was like, yes, today's going to be a good day. So teacher, I don't even remember who my health teacher was, but they put on, and they're like, we're going to watch this movie about abusive relationships. And I don't know. I don't know what the rest of the class was doing. I was so I was so in my brain. So front and center, it's, one of those horribly acted, horribly scripted, utterly terrible depictions of an abusive relationship, like from start to finish. And it was like watching myself. I remember sitting there, and like as it's going on, it's like, oh my gosh, I was in that situation. Oh my gosh, that's me. I actually had that conversation, and I've experienced what this girl is experiencing on the show, and it felt like, I know nobody else was paying attention to me, but it felt like everyone was looking at me. It felt like, that dream you have where you're naked in front of the whole school? That's how this felt, except I wasn't asleep. So everything starts like kind of like, whoa. And I pretty much lose it. I think I started crying in the classroom, and I ran out into the hallway. This was one of the classrooms that opened up into like the breezeway, and I ran out there and threw up. And my health teacher had no idea what to do with me, and I was I couldn't articulate anything. It was just like this horrible thing. And I remember being asked, like, what do I want? Do I want to go home? Like, what do I need? And I went to my French teacher's class. I was really close to my French teacher in high school. And so were two of my very best friends. So I went to her room because I don't know. She's just the one I chose. So I went to her room and I show up there. It's the middle of class and I'm visibly very upset. And she's like, just go sit in my office. And she had this office in the back of her room, which you could close the door and had no windows, see the outside world. So it was like a closet. So I go in there and I just sit down on the ground and I'm bawling. And she has no idea what to do with me. She's got a class, like, so then all of a sudden my two best friends who were in her class showed up, and they come into the room, and I just remember kind of like laying there. I was laying on one of their laps, like my head, and he's like rubbing my head, calming me down, and the other one is like wanting to like figure out who has hurt me, what has happened that has made me in go into this kind of state. And I don't think we talked. I think it was just like the three of us just sat in there for a while, and I just cried until I couldn't cry anymore. And then and that's when I realized I had just gotten out of an abusive relationship, and there was no denying that that's what it was. And court was looming, and I really just like this like huge weight of everything came down on me. Like, I couldn't believe that that's what it was. I couldn't believe that that's what I had been in. I couldn't believe I allowed that to happen. I couldn't believe that I was able to get to that state. And also then, there's the like the knowledge that getting out of an abusive relationship is the most dangerous time in one. Staying in it is actually safer usually for the victim, because leaving causes there's a lot of danger in leaving. And so knowing that and not really wanting to acknowledge that was also really heavy for a 16-year-old to deal with. So yeah, that was rough. Then I just, I don't know. It was very hard. And again, didn't talk about it to people because no one knew. Nobody knew. So, and I didn't know anybody who had also experienced anything similar to that. So, I really did not know what to do, where to turn, I just didn't. So, kind of just kept it all. And I wore that all the time. So that stinks and it hurts. And so I think I did more damage to myself by sweeping that under the rug. And so I don't really want to do that anymore. And so anyway, I'm pretty sure I've talked to my kids about this. I think I've had conversations with them about that relationship and the kinds of situations that had happened. My son is dating, and I want to make sure that like he's going to be a good boy and somebody worthy of a great girl. And then so it's a lot of pressure. I think makes me nervous.